topic where I would like to cover on operating system. OS is an interface between user and system. Through that it can help you to make use of that particular system. So without operating system I cannot make use of any of the system. So therefore OS is mandatorily needed to make use of any system by the end user. OS is categorized into the two parts, or we say that based on the interface, where I would like to give you into categorization. One is CUI and second is GUI. CUI stands for character user interface. GUI stands for graphical user interface. What is the difference between character user and a graphical user? In a character user, where the interface is to be remembered, everything is in the form of commands. That means I need to know and I need to remember the syntax and semantics. Now what is the syntax here? A syntax is nothing but explaining about you a structure of command. A structure of command. When I make use of semantics, semantics is given you as the meaning of command. Syntax is nothing but structure and semantics is nothing but meaning. The character user interface, which will be taken you as a syntax and semantics. For example, everything must be made into a typeboard and through the keyboard where I need to type, and then that should be executed in a proper way by using of a syntax and semantics. If anything which goes wrong, so your command will not be executed and your task will not be completed. So therefore, if I want to complete any particular task, I need to remember what is the command. So if I say command is copy, command name is copy, and this will be used to copy of one file content to the other file content. That means if a file content which is already available, then I am going to be making a copy or duplicate to that particular contents of a file. So therefore, the syntax of a copy command is the file name which is to be existed already, then I am going to be given you the name of the file to be copied into this. So therefore, the contents of one file where the contents of the file 2 is going to be created. So I must remember of this particular entire syntax. So the syntax is going to be given here as the structure of that. So copy, the first command name, then followed by which file you want to make a copy and to which file where I want to make a copy of that. So this is called as a structure. Then semantics is nothing but the meaning of that particular command. The meaning of this particular command is to copy the file contents to the other file. If I make use of any of the other command syntax, then this is not going to work properly. So this is called as character user interface command. Then I have been declared here as another type of OS is GUI, and GUI stands graphical user interface. This graphical user interface will be given you that everything would be in the form of a menu driven program. That means whatever the syntax which is being given here for copy file 1 file 2, which is going to be given in the form of copy is the name of the menu item which is available in the edit, and if I select a particular information or text and then copy, then wherever you would like to paste and you can paste up that. That means I need not remember what is the structure of that and what is the syntax of that. And if I can just know about what is the process of implementing of that, then that would be more enough. So that the GUI operating system is very useful or very meaningful and easy to access with any kind of the things. and CUI is to be remembering is very much required. If anything goes wrong, then that particular task is to be restarted once again from the beginning. So that is what the difference between GUI and CUI. CUI is basically a character and GUI is basically based on the pixel. So character and pixel. Pixel is a short form of picture element, and a character which is going to be occupying of 8 bits here. And whereas pixel is going to be occupying of a pixel which is going to be telling you about a resolution. Now how much resolution which is required to make a graphical user interface. So we do have a many number of resolution monitors which are available. So right now where people are being using 1024 by 1024 or even 2048 by 2048. Likewise, where we can see the much high definition or ultra high definition resolutions which are provided to see a good clarity or image on the screen. If we are considering about character will occupy 8 bits and 8 bits which are in the form of zeros and ones. But whereas in the case of a pixel is going to be given here as 1, another pixel, another pixel, another pixel likewise. It will be given you an inch of screen, in inch of a screen. How many number of pixels which are arranged in row wise and column wise is going to be indicated as resolution. So therefore, if I could get 1024 by 1024, then the number of picture elements in a particular row that are being arranged 1024 pixels. To get that particular 2048, the number of pixels which are arranged in a row 2048 pixels. Likewise, we do have with the 2048 rows with the 2048 columns. So that I can call it as ultra high definition screen which is going to be produced. Now what's the difference between the CUI and GUI? A pixel information can be taken a part of that and we can easily modify of any particular information. But whereas in the case of character, if it is being occupied by a 8-bit or a 16-bit or a 32-bit, where it is not possible to make you out with the part of the information can be modified. But if I want to change anything, then I need to go with the entire things which must be done here. Then whenever if I am talking about operating system with the CUI and GUI, I can give you some of the examples of the operating systems with this particular CUI and GUI. The examples which comes under CUI are the basic DOS operating system. The basic DOS operating system is used by many number of people in the olden days. So DOS stands for disk operating system. I repeat, DOS stands for disk operating system, which was with 6.22 and 6.48 version likewise. Then we have Unix is a version, or Unix is an operating system. I have written that UNICS, but this is being abbreviated to UNIX. Originally, now we are calling it. But what is the full form of Unix here? Because I have been abbreviated for DOS. DOS stands disk operating system, and Unix is also being given here as uniplexed information computing system. I repeat, Unix is uniplexed information computing system, by which CS has been combined together, then X is replaced here. So UNICS, uniplexed information computing system, now which is CS of the last two characters are replaced by a single character X. So that is Unix. Now you can have even Xenix. You can have even Xenix, and these are all the different examples which comes under the character user interface. So everything would be managed by the up and down arrow keys or left and right arrow keys along with some commands and by using a space command. Coming to the examples of the GUI application. GUI application which will be majorly started from Microsoft Windows, and which is having with the versions started from 3.112 to now what we are using called 8.1 or 8.2 something versions. So 3.11 onwards, where they started directly with the 97 and then 98, then you have been given called 2000, and that 2000 is called Millennium Edition. Then in 2007 that has been released in 7, that is Microsoft 7. Then later the version which is 8.1 and 8.2. And now soonly where we are going to be seeing that Microsoft Windows 10 is an operating system, which are all of these parts from the Microsoft Windows. Then you have a very good operating system which is called as Linux, or we can call it as Linux or Linux, anything can be called here. Like we do have Solaris and etc. These are all the few examples which comes under operating systems for CUI and GUI. So anything can be managed and extended with help of a menu driven program and a character driven program. That is what the major difference between that and this. Now, how exactly this operating system is going to be considered here, for what type of features which are there for these many number of operating systems. The features of the operating system where you can cover for that is it can cover for process scheduling, it can cover for CPU scheduling, it can cover for even how the file system is going to be maintained. It can cover for the number of features for security, providing the security. It can cover for the memory management, and that is a concept of basically file system, memory management and etc. So these are the main features of your operating systems. When I am talking about a file system is a system that is being given for any kind of the operating system where it is required. Based on this particular file system only, where the data is going to be stored and the data is going to be retrieved. The file system, whenever if my system is supporting for FAT8, FAT stands file allocation table, and this allocation table is going to be considered for the 8-bit initially, and extended to 16-bit and extended to 32-bit. That means 8 bits can be stored at any point of the time, 8 bits can be retrieved at any point of the time, or 16 bits are stored or 16 bits are retrieved, 32 bits are stored or 32 bits are retrieved. Then the next system which is called as NTFS. NTFS once again started with 32-bit and then extended to 64-bit. Whatever the Windows operating system which is now coming on 32-bit operating system or 64-bit operating system, NTFS stands for New Technology File System, which will be used for 32-bit length or 64-bit. Now whatever if I am giving these are the results, no, so 8-bit or 16 or 32 or 64, this is called as addressability. This is called as addressability. The addressability is given you that how much block storage which is required to store the data and to retrieve the data at a particular second of amount of time. Within a specified time, the data transfer rate and the data retrieved rate is being called as addressability. Then we have the next case is DFS. DFS stands distributed file system. DFS stands distributed file system, and this will be started even for storing the data to 64 to 128-bit. 64 to 128-bit. Then the next concept called GFS. GFS stands Google File System. Google File System, which has started with the minimum length of the data is going to be taken into the consideration for 64 MB, but these are all of the data where it can be in the form of only the bits. Now GFS has been started with 64 MB. Now the next concept of the file system is HDFS. HDFS uses Hadoop distributed file system. Hadoop distributed file system, and which is going to be the length of 128 MB space. 128 MB space, which is going to be taken as 1 bit. That is addressability, which is going to be extended enormously from distributed file system to GFS and GFS to HDFS. Likewise, where the things are happening in the file system. So based upon this addressability, where the data memory is going to be managed. Based upon this particular addressability, the memory is going to be managed. The memory is going to be organized here as the data is coming, and the data is going to be organized in randomly, because the data which is stored in the memory locations in random locations, because every memory will have its own address. Every memory will have its own address, and that address is called physical address. That address is called physical address, where a physical address is going to be calculated here as the address of that particular location plus an offset address. The address of that particular location, or we can also call it as logical address of that particular location plus an offset address. For example, if the address is going to be given as 100 and an offset address is going to be given as 23, so my data is available in 100th location, and with that particular location I want to move to 23rd place, and by which where your data is going to be started. If the data is organized in randomly, so then there is a problem in getting the data storage for the number of blocks which are continuously not being done. So in that particular case, where we apply a mechanism called defragmentation. A defragmentation is a mechanism where the number of data locations which are organized in one particular fashion, so that some of the memory locations which may be made it into an empty. So these are all organized data, and these are all empty data. That means we are making all the empty slots at one particular moment, and then whatever the data which is available, all the contents which are stored at one particular place. That is the mechanism of a defragmentation. So to summarize up, so far we have done with OS, and OS is categorized with two varieties. One is CUI and GUI. Then we have even gone through with what are the examples of CUI and GUI. Then we have even discussed about how the data is going to be done in CUI and GUI, and what to be the difference between CUI and GUI, what to be remembered in CUI and what to be remembered in GUI, and how much space which is required to store a particular character or to store a particular pixel. Then what kind of resolutions which we have, and then we have even discussed about the examples of operating system. Then what are the features of operating systems, as we have discussed. So then we have even discussed about what is the file system. So file system, out of which where the current trend which is now running on HDFS and GFS. GFS is proprietary version and HDFS is basically open source. So we have discussed about the defragmentation. The defragmentation will help us to make all the filled memory blocks into one side and empty is into another side. So thank you.